Through the prayers of Holy Fathers of Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen. Happy feast of Saint Spiridon and Saint Herman. We are here today. First off, I see the chat is active. God bless everyone who is asking, including Sunrise and Rizanetia and let me see who else asked. There was a Lotus. Okay, so we all know why we're here. This is we have been talking about this for a couple of weeks. It's the Horrorstream where we're going to answer all of the objections and worst things possible that we have heard about true Orthodoxy, and we're going to go through them one by one in order of least popular to not as popular. Some of them I will generalize. Some of them were rather detailed, and I will get through them with the comment on screen. So definitely we've got a lot to look at. And let's see, we can get to, I'm going to just put actually the community tab on screen because most of the comments came from the community tab. Excuse me. Excuse me. I may be burping a bit because I had a bit of indigestion and I drank some ginger ale, hoping that it would solve that. So happy feast of Saint Herman. Excuse me for that. And let's take a look. And we're going to go through them one by one. And I actually did a little bit, no research. These are going to be as clear answers as I can give. Happy feast of Saint Spiridon. And St. Herman, and so we will get started in just a moment as soon as I pull up the original post, which I'm doing right now. And, okay. Google is asking me for a poll. So, all right, let's get started. And we're going to, once again, I'm going to say, after each question, please help us with a donation. We cannot do this without you. So let's get started. As I said, I'm going to go get started from least highest voted to most highest voted. And the least highest voted with one vote, which was mine, was no real sacraments. You guys you don't have real sacraments. You're schismatic, and that got one vote, which was mine. Some of these, by the way, are going to, even though they're low voted, some of them actually are interesting questions. So we're going to get through that one. The first question that we have to ask is, on what basis are you making the claim that there are no real sacraments at all? The first thing is, as we know, our churches have apostolic succession. They come from the churches that were there at the time of the scriptures. That's a given. They come from Orthodox bishops. So to claim that we don't have real sacraments, silly, schismatic, I'm going to leave because that one comes up repeatedly. But yeah, in order to claim that we don't have real sacraments, that was what was said by the New Calendarists when the True Orthodox of Greece first formed. It became their basis for incitement of violence, mass repressions and persecutions. Excuse me again. But yeah, that's unfortunately, we still see that sort of thing happening, even, unfortunately today. But that's something that, it's negative. And let me take a look here. John and C says, they spread on Doc Christmas yet. I have not figured out how I am going to I have not figured out how I'm going to put this up. Let me see here. We're taking questions at the end. I have 25 objections we're working with here, and this is just number one. So if somebody says you don't have real sacraments, you really just have to question what's their motive. On what basis do they say that? Honestly, it's a silly question when we deal with it. So now it starts getting a little spicier. But before we get to that spicy question, once again, if you can help with a donation, we cannot do this without you. I will be asking this after every question. With that, let's get to the next one. The next lowest, with one vote, claimed Metropolitan Demetrius is blessing people to go to the OCA. I've never heard this. I don't know why this person said that. everyone I know under Metropolitan Demetrius is very much not in favor of going to the OCA. So I cannot humanly see how this is possible, but I would direct that to Metropolitan Demetrius, who probably will not like being accused like that because, frankly, I can't even see him doing that. But I said I'd cover them all. The next one. The GOCK is heretical due to the union with the Synod of Resistance and Metropolitan Agafungo. You'd have to demonstrate how Metropolitan Agafungo is heretical, and more importantly, there is no more Holy Synod and Resistance. It has been absorbed into the Synod of Archbishop Kallinikos, something which former bishops of the Synod and Resistance themselves freely not only admit but are happy about. The next one, and before we go on, don't forget, if you can, please help with a donation. We cannot do this without you. It's going to be a continual reminder, and these will get more and more complicated as time goes on, so definitely. The next one, Nun Mariam, with 1 vote, ran the Matthewite Synod. This is referring to Mother Miriam, who has another question on this list, which was much more popular, a much spicier question. But to my knowledge, nobody among the Matthewites sees the church in that way. The claim is based on rumor. To our knowledge, you can't say she might have been involved in the day-to-day running of affairs in the Matthewite Synod. That doesn't mean she ran the synod any more than the head secretary of an organization is the CEO. It just doesn't make sense. So I would say no, that's definitely not true. The next one, of course, is another Matthewite question. The single-handed consecration of the Matthewites. This is a kind of a two-pronged answer. The first one is that despite what people often assume, single-handed consecrations have occurred in history. However, they require the blessing of a higher synod. With the formation of the Serbian church, the earliest consecrations were single-handed, but they had the blessing of the synod in Constantinople. Same thing with, there's a number of other cases in history, I believe in the Irish church. That said, it is not done without the blessing of a higher synod, and in the case of the Matthewites, that wasn't true. However, we do know that there was the 1970, I want to say 1972, 1971, people debate whether it was a hierothesia, whether it was a simple confession of faith. I tend towards the simple confession of faith because that's what it seems most of the participants say it was, from the church abroad. So the question's moot now. Even the people have argued, well, some of them rejected the church abroad, and one can make that argument fine, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the effort was made, it was done. So kind of a weird thing to say. All right. Well, thank you, Sunrise, with $10. Keep up the good work. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Lingual Inquirer with a cross. Thank you. And God bless both of you for these donations. Rizanadia with $20, 20 something. I'm not sure what the NOK is. I think it might. I'm not sure. I want to say maybe is that. No, I really don't know what that is. Okay. Rizanadia sends 100. Here you go, Butter Joseph. Long live Christ in the autonomous metropolia. Well, Christ is, by nature God, so he's immortal. But that's. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I will take new Norwegian kroner. So thank you. 120 Norwegian kroner from Rizanadia. Thank you so much. And thank you for that explanation, Wicked Wally. Norway kroner, very good. Okay, and John A said, okay, again, these are, John A does counter answer that point, though, that was brought up about Metropolitan Demetrius. Says, when I was inquiring into TO, I was told to stop receiving communion and absolution at OCA parishes, and that parish is under Metropolitan Demetrius. Rizanetti's question, why does the World Orthodox say the first Sigillian's a forgery? The simple answer is because it works against their case. Orthodox Traditionalist Publications says he's definitely not. Jason, since we are now reading comments, we've gone off the track. It's okay. But since the Canon 1 of St. Basil says those who go into schism, even if they are Orthodox, lose the grace of the Holy Spirit and become laymen, which two Orthodox groups are in schism and which are not? That's a pretty complicated question. I would say that is one of the trickier questions in world in the. I'm surprised nobody brought that up over the past 2 weeks, but I'm going to go back to it because it is a good question, and I am going to kind of leave that one at the end because it is complicated. It is not that simple. Sometimes groups that declare each other in schism then reconcile. And that it makes the issue fuzzier, because then that often happens, and sometimes schismatic groups will simply die off. But let's get back. So we have dealt with the question of the single-handed consecration of the Matthewites. We're getting next to, we still have this, let me see here. All right, this one, oh boy. Yeah, this one's worth noting. It came in super late. It actually came in like a day before the actual show. And so the next few only have one vote, but in reality, they all came from one guy. And so I am going to put the whole thing, because even though it is a single post that was put up, and now it's 2 days ago, it had like 6 or 7 accusations that we're going to deal with piece by piece. So let me put that up on the screen so you can see that for yourself. Because I was kind of shocked that it came in so late. And this was clearly from somebody who really knows. They have quite a bit of history about us. They know quite a bit about us. So we're going to go one by one. And let me see if I put them in. How did I put them in, or what order? Okay, I kind of mixed them up. But in any case, I'm going to cover all of these. And so, yeah, but now I kind of, numerically, they're out of order. And so thank you for that. Let me see here. Orthodox Ethos Schultz has entered the house. LOL. Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to be dealing with these. The first one, because it's on the list. That's my point. It's on the list. Let me see if any of these. Okay, so I'm going to deal with the ones that are not that are on the list so far, because some of them got more than one vote. And so let me see here. The uncanonical fasting rules in the Matthewites. In the first place, you're specifically talking about the Kirikites. If you're just talking about the practice of the 3-day fast in Greece, that's not just a Matthewite thing. There are a lot of traditionalists, even among New Calendarists, who do the 3-day fast. Whether it's canonical or not is another question. I don't think it is. I think just fasting properly throughout the week is enough, but not everybody feels this way. And some people think that that's a lax practice, but it's not a Matthewite thing. So just that's one thing. Let me see here. We dealt with single-handed consecration already. The accusation that he wasn't aware of the situation, that's silly. No, very few people believe that Bishop Matthew was senile. I'm not even going to deal with that. But was basically puppeted by the non-present. We covered that. This is silly stuff. Let me see here. This was one thing. What else did I have in here? There was the acceptance of the Seraphim Ogenadites into Rokor A that was in here. If I remember correctly, no, that one's a different one. But I'm going to take this off the screen because it's just making things more confusing, at least for me, because I'm not answering these people post by post. But in any case, let me see here. The acceptance of the Seraphim Ogenadites into Rokor A. Unlike a lot of people, I know that this is a contentious issue, especially among continuing Rokor communities. But from my perspective, when Bishop Lazar of Tambov rejected the Seraphim Ogenadite consecrations, I think he was wrong. I think that it was, they were under really bad circumstances, and I understand that there's controversy as to how Bishop Gennady Sakach was made, etc. But I mean, we have a tendency, and this is actually going to get into a comment that is coming up very soon from Chris Dabrowski as to how many times often true Orthodox unevenly apply our weights when it comes to world Orthodoxy as opposed to each other. And that's a practice that needs to stop. The catacomnics died out. This is actually tied into the question of the Seraphim Mogenidites in order to believe the fiction, and it is a fiction that Moscow has been pushing since 2000, will continue to push, and have been pushing, especially since the Union, that basically after World War II, there were no catacomnics left. This isn't true. It's not honest. We have lists of lives of people who lived and served as catacomb communities and clergy well into the 1980s. So this claim that the catacomnics died out, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You'll have a Moscow Patriarchate person point out someone like Elder Tavrion, who is a catacomb confessor and who talks about the catacomb church in the 1970s, and say, well, he was okay with people going to the Moscow Patriarchate if they had no services, but then also say the catacomnics didn't exist. Make up your mind. You can say the catacomnics were not as strict as you want, which is fine. Many argue that, although it's not always true, like with the passportless catacomnics, etc. Or you can say that they didn't exist, but you can't have both. It doesn't. One of them is true, and if you're claiming both, you're lying. Neo-Nazis, the presence of neo-Nazis in true Orthodoxy. I'd say that's a glass house you'd be very careful to throw stones in. With all due respect, as many people as you might say there are that are neo-Nazi in true Orthodoxy, there's 10 times more in world Orthodoxy. I know because we deal with them often. And you'll have absolute Nazis calling us schismatics and so on and so forth because they're new calendarists. So the idea that there's no neo-Nazis in world Orthodoxy is silly, and to blame it on us. The simple reality is most of our neo-Nazis are the people who came from your neo-Nazis but were too loud in your parishes and got chased out. So that's all I got to say on neo-Nazis, okay? Uncanonical retirements, 1 vote. You notice the number there, it's how many votes this got, and this was just thrown out there. This is from that big letter. Andreas of Athens, of the Matthewites, Auxentius of Athens, of the Florinites, and Vitaly of Rochor. None of those are true. Archbishop Andreas lived to the end of his life of the Matthewites. Lived to the end of his life. He got sick towards the end. He was the oldest hierarch of true Orthodoxy when he died. Like he was like 90 something, and it was like a month before he announced his retirement, and then he passed on. So yeah, he wasn't uncanonically retired at all. The real controversy was that Kyriakos thought he would be made first hierarch, and he wasn't, and Stephanos was voted instead, so Kyriakos broke off. Archbishop Auxentius, again, he was uncanonically tried and illegally deposed. He was not retired. So, no, he broke off and, with his bishops afterwards because he thought the condemnation was illegal. And, yeah, so there was no happy retirement for him either. He was crucified till he died. So, no, not a retirement. Metropolitan Vitaly of Rochor? Oh, boy. That's throwing stones, considering that, they tried to claim that Metropolitan Vitaly retired himself. He had to unretire himself in Rochor that would become MP, and he would end up helping form the Rossi. So none of those are true. It's just words on a screen. With one vote, TOCR UAOC consecrations. This comes from the mega letter. Again, the TOCR, or Metropolitan Seraphim Synod, back when he was Bishop Raphael, is a little more complicated than that. There were bishops who did receive, who attempted to receive their consecrations from Methody Kyriakov, and there was a 1990 synod where some of the Seraphim Mogenidites, these people consecrated by the Ukrainians, got together and tried to regularize the situation for all of them. and then move forward from there. And that was kind of what led to the creation of the Serafimo, the synod under Metropolitan Raphael and later Metropolitan Seraphim. So yeah, that's false. Once again, because we're speeding through these, and I again want to remind, please help out with a donation. We cannot do this without you. So this is great. So far, let me see here. Okay, and let's see here. All right. Well, thank you, Lazaroon. We appreciate the donation. You've kind of, admitted yourself. That's fine. And let's see what you got. A lot of support. Glory to God. We do need support to keep this going. It's very important. Happy Spraznikum to all. Happy feast of Saint Spiridon and Saint Herman. This is the place to go when you are looking for answers about true orthodoxy, etc. Gubba Nub what the? Can you still go to the MP if you have no other options, or has that changed? That has changed massively since the 1970s. Unlike the 1970s, when catechumenics were actively being persecuted, most of the true Orthodox churches in Russia are public. No, you should go to them. No, I'm not answering the Iron Guard question, Rizanetia. It's simply, again, I would say, if you want a simple answer, I mean, many of them were Orthodox Christians. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It had some support in the church at the time, and it was turned into chaos. Basilier says, blessings, put all the Mr. Here's trolls on the timeline. Yeah. Blessed Andreas of Athens. Yeah, eternal memory to him. True, I was present there. Kudos for saying that, Father, about Metropolitan Andreas. It's true. And Vitali is still in the Roker V. No, Metropolitan Vitali passed on. He passed on 10 years ago or more. Kenyan Orthodoxy says, Ayo, I'm late. Okay, and all right. Well, good to see you. Let's continue on. And we will move forward. Let's see here. We are moving along. Okay. Occultist accusations against Metropolitan Seraphim with one vote. This has been one of the most controversial things said about Metropolitan Seraphim. It comes from when he was Bishop Raphael in Russia. He started what was known as I believe it was called the True Orthodox Healing Center. It was a naturopathic center. So it relied on, herbs and things like that, natural remedies. Somewhere along the lines, this turned into the claim that he was using like divining methods, etc., for healing. He has denied that vehemently. As I understand it, it wasn't. It was kind of like an herbal remedy kind of place, and he's always said he was into naturopathic medicine. That is not the same as being an occultist. All right, let's take a look at comments. Let me see. Mary Herman, Miss Atomic League, yes. I hope you're. God bless you, Kenyan Orthodoxy. Miss Nadia, wait. What about the neo-Nazi thing? I covered that. There's neo-Nazis in World Orthodoxy. The idea that we're brimming with Nazis is kind of dumb. And as the Iron Guard, again, organizationally, it was, from what I remember, a state organization. It was a paramilitary organization. It was not officially part of the church. There may have been chapters blessed by the church, etc. Let me see here. Unseen Warfare asks, why do you think Cyprian would try to debunk the Sigillian? That's a good question. And honestly, I think that it is. We will never really know because he obviously passed on. But I think he may have been, especially in the early 80s, because this period was an ugly one for true Orthodoxy. There were a lot of people who were not sure how they wanted to react to the World Orthodox, and I think he saw it as an opportunity to try to give an olive branch to the new calendarists, which he didn't realize would just be used as a weapon against him. Orthodox Traditionalist Publication says academic honesty. Yes, but there's still questions about whether, people They unfortunately took that essay and would say, therefore, the Sigillian of 1583 doesn't exist, whereas there are records that it did exist. It may just be lost. And the Orthodox Wiki did that. Unfortunately, Orthodox Wiki, like most of Wikipedia, well, Wikipedia is separate, but it has come to follow a very similar policy of pro-censorship, and making sure that misinformation when it comes to true orthodoxy is the norm. You can go to almost any page about any of the true Orthodox synods, and their information, if it is even accurate, is somewhere 10 to 15 years out of date. And then, people do claim the first Sigillion is a forgery, which it isn't, but completely ignore the Sigillion of 1756, which condemns the papal calendar. Very true. Hold on. Okay, so let me see here. Let's get to it. Once again, support the stream, if you can. Support us by subscribing or donating to nfto.net on GiveSendGo or on Odyssey, or just donate here with a super chat. So let's get to there, and let's shut off the banner. Get to the next one. Let me see here. The Orthodox Church of Indonesia, ecumenist with 2 votes. People are claiming that the Orthodox Church of Indonesia is ecumenist. I have seen claims of supposed evidence for it. What I don't see is people are throwing names around, but I don't see them actually citing any public statements. I don't see them actually reaching out and saying, well, this is what he personally said to me, with quotes so that they can be referenced. It's a lot of empty claims. And I think what it comes down to, as sad as this sounds, it comes down to ecumenist jealousy. They're upset that the missionary work of Father Daniel Biantoro, who, if I remember correctly, may be a bishop now, grew so much, and he went and joined with the True Orthodox Church of Greece, and they are the officially registered church in Indonesia. So they are the state Orthodox Church of Indonesia, but they're also True Orthodox. That is, unfortunately, as much as it upsets the ecumenists who want to claim the Orthodox Church of Indonesia as one of their own, but that's a vision of the future for you. What you're going to see is more and more True Orthodox taking power. There's nothing you can do about that, because being ecumenist, you can't bring people into the church. You don't have that ability. Let me see here. Clack says, "What's up, peep?" He said, I didn't see Warfare, so I didn't see proof that it was a forgery. Rather, he claims it without showing his work. Yeah. Let me see here. Jason. Now, Jason has, again, Jason, I understand that, this is kind of, you're kind of one of those people that's really upset with these streams, and that's cool. But, let me see here. Resonatia says, Father Joseph, why didn't any True Orthodox do a mission in Iceland, and what was stopping them from doing that? With Roak and me, could I possibly influence such a decision in the future? I'm sorry if I have to point this out, but I could just put a line and say insert country here. The simple reality is that in order to do missionary work, you have to first off, you have to be in the church. You have to be baptized. You have to help develop a mission. And that takes work. It's not as simple as, declaring, I want this to happen. It takes actual work. You may have to travel to be baptized. You may have to learn how to do the services yourself. You may have to find other people willing to join you in the process and have the guidance of a priest. There's a proper way to build missions. And there are a number of countries, not as many as there were 30 years ago, but a number of countries with no ministrations. And we have to work with that. But there are, I know near Norway, there's a number of communities in neighboring countries, etc., that should be able to help. And you've got to use that to, you've got to use the resources you have. If every True Orthodox bishop was 1,000 miles away from me, and I was by myself, I would probably consider moving. That's just my position. But let me see here. And so, yeah, Good Morning says there's Slavic hagiographers, which refer to certain Slavic saints bringing translations of the Sigillian. Unless the Sigillian forgers are time travelers, the Sigillian's legit. Agreed. All right. So, again, there's no evidence that the Orthodox Church of Indonesia is ecumenist. If you could provide evidence of it instead of just making stuff up, we would listen. And I'm sure somebody would contact Bishop Daniel or the hierarchy of the GOC. But I have a feeling there isn't what you're claiming there is. So let's see. With 2 votes, True Orthodox, and I put these all together because they're all emotional arguments. True Orthodox call themselves full of pride, paranoia, no faith that Christ protects the church, over concerned with correctness. I believe the original post said like Catholics, and gossipy. Okay. I'm going to have to say guilty as charged on a lot of these, but unfortunately that's true with World Orthodoxy too. The membership of the church being terrible people doesn't change it from being the church. There have always been good and holy people and not good and holy people in the church. I don't think I need to go on an extended rant about the wheat and the tares, but I find it very interesting that this claim was made. It was made in a couple of comments, actually, each which got a single vote. When some of the online ortho-bro movement I have seen are some of the most gossipy, catty people, self-taught, usually based on philosophy as opposed to the fathers. Yeah, their faith is in the institution, not in Jesus Christ. So I think that, that's one of those right back at you questions. So once again, I have to point this out. Please, if you can, help with a donation. We cannot do this without you. That is why I am working here on this December 25th Gregorian. My job here is to, just answer questions. And we've still got a lot. The most popular ones are still on their way, and they're going to take a little while to cover. So let's see here what we got in the comments. Let me see. You're not Jewish. No, what? What do you think about the asceticism of the ancient Greek cynics, Antisthenes, Diogenes, Crates? I think nothing of it. Asceticism exists everywhere, and it's always different. And it's usually, if it's not Christian asceticism, there's usually something wrong with it. But from the Aztecs to the Sufis, ancient Greeks, okay, asceticism has to have a purpose, and the purpose isn't a better physical you. This is one thing I saw. This one guy who apostatized from Orthodoxy. He's on YouTube, and he talks about why he apostatized, and he was drawn in by the asceticism. What he wasn't drawn in was by the Christianity, the Jesus part. And so he found himself in and out because he wasn't interested in the right things. He was interested in improving himself in a quote unquote spiritual way, but not saving his actual soul. Let me see here. Let's see. Ignore the live on my channel. The Grinch hacked my account. It's fine as long as you're advertising us. No, I'm just kidding. It's fine. I was watching that earlier. So it was very interesting. Unseen Warfare says, I read it. Seems like he's claiming he went to the archives and states these sources without showing exactly how he came to that opinion. We have saints that confirm it. Saint Nectarius being one. Ad hominem and genetic fallacy family. I have no idea what we're talking about at this point. What family said? Wow, family. What is this trolling? I don't understand who is family and what did they say that was so trollish. Did they delete it before I could read it? This fat American can definitely lead you to true orthodoxy. Like and subscribe for more contentious content. I mean, that's not exactly that's not controversial. Like I know I'm American, and I've kind of made fat jokes about me myself. Like, was that supposed to tell you something? I forget which of the Optina elders it was. And I'm not saying that I'm some sort of elder or anything like this, but I forget which of the Optina elders it was. And there was a letter of somebody who had gone under the spiritual tutelage. I think it was Elder Anatoly, but I could be wrong. And the letter notes that when he first met the elder, he was horrified. He said he was laying on a bed and he was fat like a whale or something like that. And it was disgusting to see that this was supposedly the example of asceticism that I was given. But then he began to understand that there was a deeper spiritual meaning and that he needed to become more humble. Now, granted, I'm not saying that about me. People make fun of me all day and I don't care. But you should generally not be so superficial in your understanding when it comes to things that regard the salvation of your soul. So yeah, make all the fat jokes about me you want, but maybe you really need to rethink life a little bit. Let me see here. With or without the 1583 Sigillian, the new calendar renovations still fall flat on their schismatic faces. Yes, they do. Let me see here. The cynics, yeah, I felt that too. The cynics had nothing that, they were doing it to do it. Wait, how did St. Nectarius know about the old calendar stuff when he proposed in 1920? Because of all the stuff in the world wars, etc. These are things that had been discussed. That was part of a greater European integration plan. But it's a good question and something you should pay attention to. And Unseen Warfare says because he was alive, they were talking about making the change, and he told the spiritual children, if it happens, not to go to those churches that change it. Very true. Father Antonio says judgment is very dangerous. Yes, it is. Gladatus Bob asks, is economia for contraception considered heresy? I would say economia for contraception. There's no economia for, killing or, a lot of the contraceptions are abortifacient. A lot of the barrier methods reduce sex to onanism. That's like saying, it's not, you don't get there's an economia on fasting. Fasting is when you are doing you're doing a penitential or ascetic practice for the sake of God. And so when we fast, if we're sick, we can get economia for the fast to be lowered if it's too strict. But on the flip side of good deeds are bad deeds or sins. You can't have economy for sins. There's no little bit murder. There's no little bit stealing. Those are sins, and those can't be economized, if that makes sense. Let me see here. And so let me see. Tartier's family arrived, according to contraception. Contraception is not necessarily murder, but it can be, because abortifacient, some methods like the pill, and other methods are abortifacient. They will kill in a fertilized embryo. Sunrise, 1920, there was an encyclical where the Patriarch wanted the same calendar. So that is the encyclical to the churches of Christ everywhere, which created the mess we have today. Clack says, yep, very true. The only real conception is abstinence. Everything else is hedonism. And Khan says, economia is the next best word after Bitcoin orthodoxy. Possibly true. All right, so let's go continue on. Traditional Western Orthodoxy, Bishop Enoch says, did Metropolitan Cyprianos of Orphos in Philly try to debunk the Sigillian? I thought it was Bishop Cyprian the successor, not the founder of the SIR. That is correct. I'm pretty sure it was Cyprian the second, not Cyprian the first. Okay, wait. We have Father Methodius with the $50 with the Feast of St. Spirit on Herman, Juvenali, Peter, etc. Spraznikum. Thank you. Wow, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is what keeps the show going, everyone. Thank you so much, Father Methodius. I'm touched by that. I've been, honored to have you on our show, and so thank you. I don't know what else to say, but let's continue on. Let's get back to the questions. And let's see here. Where were we? We got past that. Competing synods. Who is right? This is the variation that we often hear of the common Roman Catholic question, which Orthodox church? I would say this. For most people, they only have one, maybe two true Orthodox churches around them in the developed world, if that. And honestly, you gotta make do with what you have. There's not it's not an issue. First off, the question of who is right. We're talking about all of these churches and communities opposed to the heresy of ecumenism, Sergianism, modernism, using the traditional calendar. From a technical standpoint, all of them are right. So that's not an issue. This question is usually couched, unfortunately, in the desire to try to get the bestest option. If you are blessed enough to have priests and people who are against ecumenism near you, work with what you have. That's all I'm going to say. I think that this question of who is right is it's a very elitist way of looking at the question. Certainly, if you were to flip the question around on your average papist or world Orthodox, they would gladly say we're all right, but they do not extend that to those they oppose. So once again, I will say, please help with a donation. We can't do this without you. Thank you so much for those who are helping. I really appreciate it. We have gone through a lot of questions, and the big ones haven't even made it yet. We're not even there. We're getting there, but we're not there. Okay. So now, let me see here. Now the Ortho Bros are going to launch Ecoinomia. If we no, Wicked Wally, no. Okay. So that is Bob. Is sleeping with one's wife while she is pregnant considered to be a sin according to... Okay, if you keep saying according to old calendarists, I'm not going to answer your question because our position is just the Orthodox position. Generally, as I understand it, the canons are mostly silent on the question except in the third trimester. And the tradition is mostly silent except in the third trimester because of the fact that, one, modern medical technologies didn't exist, so most people using the regular technologies they had weren't totally sure when a woman was pregnant until maybe the third month. And then the third through 6 months, it's still a little hard to tell, so it's kind of silly. It's so the third trimester, when the baby was generally visible and clear, it was considered improper because of the fact that you could harm the baby, which medically is actually true. So keep that in mind before we start saying, "Oh, the old, outdated, old thinking." No, humanity has had a lot of this knowledge for centuries, if not millennia, and there's a reason often that the fathers make the prescriptions they do. And this claim that things are outdated is just a very spiritually homosexual way of going with things. Vasilier says, protector of old calendar is with us. I assume that would be the Theotokos. And so that's good. Mons Reader says, is there a Western Rite in true Orthodoxy? Only in our synod. Interest in the Western Rite has increased slightly in other synods, but for the most part, no, they're just Eastern Rite. And even our synod itself is not only Western Rite. It's got a lot of Eastern Rite people. Era says, Father, check your LTC address. Okay, I will do that. Just quickly, okay. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I have to do it now. Like, I'm not sure what else to do. But okay. Okay, and while we're doing that, we'll read some more of these comments while we wait here. World Orthodox use a lot of papist arguments. Yes, they do. Multiple Western rites. There's, to my knowledge, there's only ours. Bishop Cyprian of Orio is, so it was Cyprian II. Okay. I don't see anything, but sometimes LTC takes a while, so we'll see. Fronema Gaming, yep. I woke up in a new Bugatti. Okay, guys. All right. Hello, everyone. Blessed feast of Saint Spiridon and Herman. Thank you. And likewise, I mean, even okay. Seems a lot of people claim to be Orthodox because they think like the cool aesthetic and the depth of the theology without actually going to church and getting catechized. And we've been saying that a billion times here. We say this almost every stream. If you do not get received by a priest and baptized, or received by a priest, if you chrismated, if you came from Old Orthodoxy, you're not Orthodox. It's just as simple as that. Yeah, they like the cool aesthetic. What's the deal with Gabriel Urgabadze and the Catacomb Georgian Church? They have nothing to do with each other. Elder Gabriel Urgabadze, or Saint Gabriel, according to the World Orthodox, he submitted to Patriarch Elia. He's the Catacomb Georgians had nothing to do with him. He was kind of with the Catacomb. He was one of those elders who was fighting against the state, but then he just submitted. And so it was yesterday. Aha. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. I did. And yes. Thank you. We really appreciate it. That's awesome. And so I'm glad I didn't know who it was. So I do appreciate it so much. The dono, it is helping a lot. Monster Eater with a $20 donation. Thank you so much. As the Lord and preserve and keep your church the light that shines for all to see. Amen. Very true. Yeah, and then truly they spend time on TikTok debunking Islam and other stuff. But which are the Georgian catacomb saints? Well, I mean, I would count Gennady Sakach as one of the catacomb confessors of the church. But you would have to ask the Georgians, and there are true Orthodox Georgians. And so that would be, again, a question for them. Unfortunately, I do not have a way to get in touch with them. They are in communion with our Greek Synod, and there are others that are in communion with other groups. You just have to talk to different people. You have to. It takes work sometimes. If you're going to get a specific question, as sometimes one of the things that I will say, a lot of the infrastructure that World Orthodoxy has put in online for this kind of international stuff is stuff we're just barely getting off the ground now. And so a lot of that, you may be part of the, the process of helping them build better communications, etc. But it's tricky. It's tricky. All right. So let us continue on and let's get to the next question. It seems the demons will do many false miracles for pseudo-saints to lead people astray. Unreal how they replicate true miracles. It is, but that's unfortunately what keeps a lot of people in Roman Catholicism and in Protestantism as well. Let me see here. Where are we? We passed that. Competing sentence, who is right? Okay. Criminality, lack of accountability. This was an interesting one. Somebody had said the absolute crimes that were committed by true Orthodox, especially among the hierarchs. And I was kind of at a loss as to what he was talking about. There are a few horrible cases. We're going to get to one later in Pangratius Renus, but that's an interesting case on its own. But outside of the whole Paisius and Vicentius thing, they ended up joining the ecumenical patriarch before their crimes were discovered. So I don't know that's not our fault. Ultimately, you can't blame that on the collective, especially if they left for World Orthodoxy. I don't know what that means. I think that when there is, criminality, unfortunately, I think what you might be talking about is in cases of abusive behaviors of a priest, the current lack of organization, etc. And this is true in World Orthodoxy also, allows them to switch bishops before they can be disciplined, etc. Look at the case of Father Matthew Volcanescu. Like, people can just leave and then join another bishop from far away. That's still something they can do in World Orthodoxy also. and not be accountable. I believe that those people, in the absence of an earthly tribunal that can stop them, will be held accountable by God. Nobody gets away with anything in the church. Let me see here. Let me see. What was his name again? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Probably the Mariam fake case. I will be talking about the Mariam fake case later. Paisios and Vicentios. This is not Elder Paisios. This is Bishop Paisios and Vicentios. These were two bishops that were they were kind of peripatetic when it came to the true Orthodox. They moved from one to another, and eventually they were found to be involved in one of the bigger, after they joined the ecumenical patriarchate and were reordained, it was discovered that they had been abusing monks, nuns, you name it, for decades. And then I think they both fled the country, and one of them died. They both went to Greece. Kenyan Orthodoxy says, can you list the remnants of Rokor, please? I'm confused which jurisdictions are true remnants. It'll be a blessing if you do so. It goes by time. You have of course the Rokor V, which was a group that eventually was Metropolitan Vitali's group, and then that ended up there's Archbishop Vladimir, which is why it's known as the Rokor V now in California. You have the Artok in America and Europe, which was descended from Bishops Lazarus and Benjamin. And ironically, as Father Andrew Kensis pointed out, if people had just accepted that they were, in fact, senior bishops, there probably would be no schism. And then, so that both of those groups, I believe, the Rokor V has had a couple of splits with Bishop Anthony Roudet. There was Metropolitan Damascenes group, is now, I believe, it's headed by an Archbishop Seraphim in Russia. Okay, I got some kind of grime on my finger. And then let me think here. There was besides that, of course, there's Metropolitan Agafangos Synod. Those were the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. Sometimes you'll see, like, for example, Metropolitan Nicholas of Ohio. He appears alone, but he came from the Metropolitan Damascene group. So that looks like, and Rokana, of course. Rizanetti listed quite a few of those, and that's pretty straightforward. I was talking about the Georgian Catacomb Saint. I was referring to Bishop Gennady Sakach. And so Old Calendar Results says Miriam is definitely a hoax. We'll get to it. Gradius follows the new calendar. He has never been part of a serious synod, and the first time he was accused, he was a priest in the USA with World Orthodoxy. This is absolutely correct. All of the old calendarists that joined the ecumenical patriarchate, they're all new calendar. Same thing with the Ephraimites. They were originally old calendar too. All new calendar now. They've all been moved over. So people who say you can preserve hold on. Okay. Anyway, let's see here. So let's get to it. So that's, again, I'm not aware of any serious criminality among true Orthodox bishops, and I have been true Orthodox for decades. I am aware of people who moved around for criminal or less than stellar purposes and have ultimately, if they haven't been apprehended by the law, which in many cases they have, they're usually they're left to the judgment of God ultimately. With 2 votes, Roak getting friendly with Hockna. I don't know how true this is. This is when you start seeing stuff like questions like this, and unfortunately we did have quite a few questions like this that are very specific. You could always just ask them and try to figure out what's going on. There's this tendency on our part to kind of just assume that all the rumors are true. And unfortunately, this internet orthodoxy, which has been kind of promoted by Diardom and other groups, unfortunately, it's, gossip is a thing. we need to move past it. And honestly, if you want to find out whether Roak is getting friendly with Hakna, ask some people in Roak. Like, that's the only thing I can say, because they're the only people who will tell you. All right. So once again, I will say support the stream if you can. Please help with a donation. Remember, we can't do this without you. And so let me see. Nisi Orthodoxy says the only case is Nifon Anastopoulos. This was bad. I don't know if that was, you're talking about Metropolitan Nifon. I am not even sure. Let me see here. Should I be rebaptized? Chrismated? If so, when I have an upcoming confession when I have an upcoming confession by the grace and the mercy of the Lord on 6th of January, hoping to receive communion on the 7th. Who baptized you and chrismated you? And then ask your priest. And my priest says that rebaptism should be considered, but be careful with it, because allegedly there have been stories of folks receiving a demon instead of holy grace. I don't know. Okay, first off, who baptized you at ERA? If you can answer that first, then we'll know, how it proceeds. For the most part, true Orthodox do recognize that World Orthodox generally use 3 immersions. So we generally just chrismate. If you were baptized by a Roman Catholic under Bishop Nicholas of Plovdiv, okay, Plovdiv is that's Ukraine, Romania. Why would you get rebaptized? I assume he gave you a baptism with triple immersion. The only reason for a corrective baptism would be as if there was doubt that he actually immersed you fully 3 times. You would most likely just be chrismated. So that's what I would say. I asked some. I don't think they're aligned with Hakna. Just he said a small portion of Muslims are exposed. I don't know if it's an Yugoslavia thing without it. What? Without immersions, church where I was in a hill. 3 times barefoot in cauldron. Were you fully immersed in the cauldron? How big was the cauldron? Or was this just pouring water on you? If it was pouring water, you're not rebaptized. You weren't baptized. You were given some sort of small bath. Baptism involves immersion, the whole body. Even like a baptism using a barrel is covering half the body. Even that, if you can squash a little bit, and that would count. But only feet stepping in and stepping out. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and Sunrise says in Serbia, don't most of the World Orthodox do sprinkling? They do, and the true Serbian Orthodox have made a point about that, that it's something that needs correction. Though that's a real case where you weren't baptized properly, so that has to be fixed. Let me see here. So most likely your priest is right. I would leave it in his hands. He knows what he's talking about. Metropolitan and Perez, he went to jail for 28 molestations. Many of the victims are now GOC priests, and now with Father Efthymios Bardakas. And by the way, these are not rumors. He was indicted. I'm not sure what to say about that one, because depending, canonically, I guess the bishop used economy on that, because that's you're not supposed to technically, if someone is involved, okay, I don't even want to know. Top keks in Greece, at least the true baptisms have declined considerably to the point that you really have to ask. That's terrifying, actually. And unfortunately, this was part of the reason why, a lot of people are moving towards a stricter practice in true Orthodoxy. Definitely, it's unfortunate, but it's true. Let me see here. Let's get going. Let's continue to the next one. Here we go. Now they start getting juicy. Esfig Menu doesn't recognize anyone. With 3 votes, these are going to start getting they're going to start getting a little bit thicker. The simple reality is, as an independent monastery, An abbot can commemorate all Orthodox bishops. They do have that right just as much as anyone does. It is possible that Esphigmenou is not sure who in the canonical order is right, but that is within their rights as an Athonite monastery. They can do that. So the fact that they don't recognize anyone officially through commemoration does not mean that they don't think they're the only Orthodox left on earth, which is what the commenter assumed. It just means that they don't know who to recognize in the canonical taxis for commemorations. So that one was an interesting question. This one, I'm going to put the comment on the screen, canonical inconsistencies between synods. It is probably one of the hardest questions I have ever seen asked, and it is most likely, I would say, it is the Achilles heel of modern true Orthodox discourse. It was contributed by Chris Dabrowski. I believe he is a reader in the ROCOR, one of the ROCOR continuing synods, and it's a very valid question. I'm going to actually read the entire question and put it on the screen. Give me just a moment. And let me see here. Give me a moment. All right, we're going to see if we can increase this a bit more. All right, so here we go. Let me put this up. Okay, it says, not going to play softball. There's mass canonical inconsistency in how true Orthodox synods deal with each other when they break communion, whether they consider each other schismatics, graceless, having grace, or even heretics. How some of them are agnostic on whether the world Orthodox have grace, but then consider schisms off of their synod to be graceless. On the flip side, there are also synods who are agnostic, if not affirmative on grace, and other true Orthodox synods they're not in communion with, but only if they are break-off groups distantly related to their own synods, i.e. Greek synods tend to hate other Greek synods and are more lenient towards Russian synods, but Russian synods tend to hate other Russian synods and hate Greek synods. Furthermore, on paper, schism does deprive the schismatics of grace. But how can this be if there are so many fractured true Orthodox groups who all seem to have canonical skeletons in their closet, and at least according to one other true Orthodox group, are schismatic? If what St. Basil writes about the grace of God leaving schismatics, what are we to make of all this massive jungle of schisms, accusations of schism, and schisms that are schisms on paper but really aren't treated as schisms, but they're schisms? In particular, some bishops consider bishops deposed by their own synods not real bishops anymore, but bishops deposed by other synods are real bishops. If there's a strict assessment of if you're deposed by bishops and you're no longer a bishop, then logically there should be no bishops left, and it's an arms race to see who can depose each other first. Christopher, I will say that is probably the hardest question anyone can ask when it comes to true Orthodoxy. How true Orthodox treat each other is, for lack of a better word, it's disaster. And unfortunately, history shows us that it has always been disaster. I know that it doesn't sound like I'm taking the question seriously. I absolutely am. What I'm not taking seriously is a number of these declarations of anathema. Unfortunately, I'll take, for example, if we take the Rokana schism, if that's even a schism, because they stopped recognizing Metropolitan Agafangel. That was, even the question if they stopped recognizing him or not, because really what they did, it started by just making a bishop with another synod's bishop, that is the Orthodox bishop Stefan Sabelnik. Did they go into schism? They had legitimate grievances against the Metropolitan that they tried to bring to the greater synods. They were ignored. The better question is not, were they schismatic? But the question becomes, were they right? And in many cases they were, and in many cases the bishops didn't do what they were supposed to. But this, however, provides an out for us, because we now know, in that situation, for example, that there was no canonical resolution. The people in the Rokana did not become schismatic magically because Metropolitan Agafongo said they did. Metropolitan Agafongo wasn't willing to listen to his people. And so ultimately the question becomes, are bishops making claims that they shouldn't make? Probably have been doing this for a while. Illegal attempts at canonical trials without the requisite number of bishops. The number of canonical anomalies I could point to is horrendous. The number of schisms that it sometimes has caused is tragic, but we are seeing them resolve piece by piece by piece. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of this division isn't always taken seriously from our side among the true Orthodox, because we know that there's some screw up somewhere. Whereas somebody coming from the outside is horrified. They're like, oh my God, the true Orthodox are like 300 different groups. And so let me see here. Sarah from Webster says, what were the first two arguments previously addressed? Let me put them up. Let me move it back up here. It's basically why, and now the other flip side of the question is, why are true Orthodox in general, it seems, more lenient towards World Orthodox than each other? And honestly, that's a real question I think that needs to be asked of all our bishops. Because quite frankly, at this point, I think that mentality, again, was very common in the 1980s, where I think, frankly, a lot of true Orthodox believed they were going to be losers, that somehow the World Orthodox were going to fall in line with true Orthodoxy and they would be the first to join because they were the nicest ones. And that's never how it worked. The World Orthodox, the New Calendars, continued persecuting them regardless and making their lives difficult regardless. And so what ends up happening is, ultimately, think about the Florida Matthewite schism. Ultimately, Metropolitan Chrysostomus was wrong to listen to the New Calendar bishop because he trusted him as a friend. That's not, a personal failing. It's not a sin, but ultimately it is what caused a lot of the division, and he tried to fix it to the end of his life. We're flawed people, and that is the honest answer, but we have a canonical standard that we have to adhere to. And so my answer to you is that we need to be more proactive in that. Father Boniface says, could be due to a lack of a hierarchy to oversee all the various Orthodox. Well, if you mean a hierarchy, you mean like a legal hierarchy, like a monarchy, yes, that has helped hold World Orthodoxy together. Plus, vying for power could also create separations, and it did. Envy is the answer. Unfortunately, we have some of it, especially with regards to the 1990 schism. Yeah, ultimately, there's no one we can blame but ourselves. And that's, the sad part is that it doesn't mean that we're not the church. It just means that we're terrible people, which we covered already. But we have to get better, and we have to hold people to account. That's what I think, and that's my position on the matter. And I think that more and more people are starting to see that. Let me see here. Okay, and once again, let me put this on the screen just real quick. Please help with the donation. Remember, we can't do this without you. I'm definitely, grateful whenever we receive a donation. Everybody who, donates is remembered in prayer at our church here, at our chapel. And we definitely could use the help. And that's why we're doing the streams that we're doing. So let's continue on. And that one was a tough one. I will say that. But they're going to get a little bit tougher. Next, the Mother Miriam murders. I have actually done a couple of shows on this. The claim that they make is that something in the range of 57 people died of, I want to say, tuberculosis on Mother Miriam's Abbey. Now, if I remember correctly, and I do remember correctly, I'm trying to remember if it's the right disease, But this was an epidemic throughout Greece. And so many people were going to the monasteries in the hope of finding at least some spiritual healing, etc. Mother Miriam provided lodging for them. Some of them who were later in life bequeathed their land to the monastery. All of these are normal things that have happened throughout church history. And it was making the state church and the state very jealous. There's no way around that. It was. And they wanted the land. They wanted the money that people were giving and so on and so forth. So originally, this was before the reign of Spiridon Vlachos of the New Calendarists. They were going to try to prosecute Mother Miriam for illegal importation of olive oil. You can see this. This is while they knew deaths were happening. These things weren't public. There was an epidemic going on. And so they were going to try that, and they didn't really have a very good case. But what ended up happening was with the election of Spiridon Vlachos, who was a very open and hostile enemy of the true Orthodox, as in he hated them, the prosecutor's office realized, oh, well, now I can get public support for maybe a few higher charges, and we can try to take the whole monastery. And so all of a sudden, they threw on a bunch of murder charges, which was a shock to everyone. They were like, Mother Miriam was giving people advice on, basically, and telling them they should do certain exercises she learned from her elder on Athos. They probably weren't very helpful, but they probably didn't kill them. The tuberculosis killed them. But that didn't stop the prosecutor, now armed with a new calendar archbishop willing to kill. He was like, we're going all in. We're going to put her in jail for murder, and we'll take all the land. This plan did not work very well. Mother Miriam maintained her innocence to her death, and foreseeing that their plan was to take the monastery, retired as abbess quietly and gave the abbacy to another nun. I don't know her name, but she took over the administration of the monastery, and Mother Miriam took the claim. They eventually managed to say there was like 8 cases of manslaughter based on something like dehydration or something. It was just something ridiculous, which she maintained her innocence, and she died 2 years later in a jail cell. So there is a reason that the new calendars have been pushing her as a murderer. They've even put versions of her life as a character, as a villainous character on television shows, so on and so forth. While on the flip side, the nuns' monastery that she headed considers her a saint. And so, murderer or martyr? I go with martyr. I'm not a Matthewite, but I know what an innocent person looks like when you can see what's happening. Somebody to note, I'd have to get the Greek legal documents. Actually, just based on the details of the case, I mean, I could make a pretty good case without it. But I bet you those legal documents are going to be things like, "You caused this. No, I didn't. I'm innocent. It doesn't matter. Your Honor, it's clear she's guilty 100 times." That's what we're going to see. That's my guess is what are the Greek documents. All right, so let me see here. We are going to get back, and we're going to start looking at comments. And once again, let me put this up. As I put this up one more time, please help with a donation. Don't forget, we can't do this without you. Okay, so let me see here, and we're going to get back to the comments. And let me see. One problem is the influence of people in the church and the new calendar. So few know about Orthodoxy, but everyone's an expert. Very true, Father. 3 times barefoot in cauldron. Yeah, that's not a baptism. In Greece, most of them do just splash the kid. Yeah, but do they splash them into the water, or do they splash them with water? A very different question. I assume maybe by pouring with feet stepping in and out. Okay, no, that's I would say that's probably not a baptism. Okay, I did actually read these. Okay, so let's continue going down. I was splashed by Father Serving Father Yovanov. I wasn't baptized correctly. Yeah, you need a baptism, unfortunately. In older times, the new calendar kept the right way of 3 immersions. They absolutely did. And I know that among the Antiochians, they still do immersion. So I'm a little shocked that the Greeks are not. I know the Serbians aren't. I have been to the Serbian Patriarchal Monastery in Sweden. The abbot had a vessel large enough to easily immerse a baby, which was brought to be baptized, yet he sprinkled it. Wow. That's it. So you have the font, you're just not using it. Like, I get people being like paranoid that, like, there's that one crazy priest who got arrested for like basically a child abuse, throwing a baby in the water like violently. Like, but no, that you can't do that. No. This is horrible. When I'm hearing horror stories, and I thought I knew this was called a Horrorstream, but I didn't expect it to be this horrifying. Spraying water and you're baptized now, but don't forget economy. Oh boy. People like Gorge don't even really baptize anyone. If this is true, I'm really, really depressed. Well, exactly. I was baptized by Gorge in 2009 by full immersion 3 times, but I had a good priest. I know for a fact he still baptizes correctly, but he's been a priest for 40 plus years at this point. Yeah, unfortunately, we're probably going to see more generational decline among the world Orthodox, and we're going to have to become stricter and demand baptism. My priest, while I was in the MP, chose to sprinkle someone despite the church being right next to a lake because, in his words, it was too cold. It was autumn. I understand the health issues, but there's no reason to sprinkle someone. I'm going to give it to you straight, guys. You can buy a feeder, which can usually baptize a person of even over 6 feet. I know because I've done it for $150 for Tractor Supply. You can put that right in the middle of the church. You can fill it up right from the sink with a hose. There is no excuse to not baptize somebody, especially not one based on the weather. If it's too cold to work with a lake, then you work someplace where it's not too cold. But it's not impossible. And yet people pretending it is, they should be ashamed of themselves. A convert himself, one of us filthy Americans from which you cannot find real orthodoxy. Wow. Interesting. World orthodoxy has no grace. Heresy has no grace. Didn't St. Basil say flee from heretical bishops and he was killed? I don't think he was martyred, but he was a saint, and he did say flee from heretical bishops. Era says, he says we should discuss it in full with priests of your confession, but from what you've told us, you've not been baptized and need to be baptized and chrismated before you receive communion. Absolutely true. Solid question in general needs resolving. In the beginning, the issues were because no one can trust anyone. Now this excuse should stop. Absolutely. It is definitely an issue that needs resolving, scambling, stumbling block. Unfortunately, there's an answer and a solution. Kyprianism doesn't exist anymore. Not dealing with that. Okay. And I believe I read Father Boniface's Envy. I read that one. Okay. I want to watch services on YouTube this AM because I don't live near a church and the constant attacks were horrible. Well, there's nothing wrong with watching services in the morning. You can. It's also advisable just say prayers. Church is heresy to fight. Heresy has always been terrorizing throughout church history. GOC and GSCM share the same building in Athens, but can't be friends. Funny and sad at the same time. They're getting better. From what I understood, it used to be it was a lot worse, as I remember, it was. They're getting better. Just pray for them to resolve things. If they resolve that would be a huge step forward. The church is both human and divine. The human side will always have problems because we are sinners. Very true. Let me see here. Father bless you. I'll probably go into this article later, but what do you think of the miracle within Workroom P with the miraculous Hawaiian mirror streaming icon that has cured cancer and other ailments? That mirror streaming icon was mirror streaming long before Rocourt joined the Moscow Patriarchate. So it's I know people think that miracles will cease at the onset of schism, and that's not how it works. Oftentimes, such miracles are warnings, and people don't get the warnings, but maybe other people need help. God still wants to help people, even if the churches fall into heresy. That's why many Roman Catholics still receive blessings from relics. That I wouldn't go. Holy things don't become unholy because unholy people hold them. The machine lies. Welcome says. Okay, or gives the eyes. Sadly, our old calendar church we attended was ruined due to priest issues and government agents. You're gonna have to keep trying. We've got to rebuild. I'm sorry to hear that, Conrad. It's very sad, very true. Condolences, Conrad. Yeah, got to see what we can do. Archbishop Akakius Pappas has written about Miriam in the infamous monastery. There are indeed governments that want us all gone. Don't think we're not under that particular attack as well. It's a bit more subtle. Absolutely. Father Joseph, how do you explain the lack of will of most true Orthodox synods and elders to make join all true Orthodox Zabor on minimum of our confession of faith? Arrogance or weak, forceless pessimism and fear? I think it's actually closer to long-held grudges. Is almost always what it is. And that's part of the reason why we're seeing more and more unity among true Orthodox all over the world, is because people are getting over it. What it comes down to is grudges are not a reason for division. And eventually, one of two things is going to happen. Either A, the people holding the grudge will repent of holding a grudge and make peace, or they'll die. In which case, somebody who's not holding a grudge will be able to fix the things that couldn't be fixed. A lot of the Mother Miriam stuff reminds us about how the COVID governments went after people who opposed the vax, lockdowns, and accused those who did it of murdering people. Absolutely true, Vladica. Our Metropolitan Angelos, as I mentioned, had a very strong stance against the vaccine for the media, and the media referred to him as the Merchant of Death. And then he died, and they had a field day with that. God rest his soul, and memory eternal. Vasilius' Mother Miriam is a saint 100%. It's very possible. Certainly, she isn't a murderer, in my opinion. Question for you, Father. How do I find true Orthodox churches in Canada, Ontario? How to get a catechism? Well, you can order catechisms online, but I'm pretty sure there are true Orthodox churches in the Ontario region. I'm pretty sure there are dioceses of true Orthodox. I know there's a metropolis of Toronto. There's the Macarian metropolis. There's churches there. I know one of our bishops is not far from Toronto. You have options. You just have to look for them. If anyone Canadian wants to help, please do. Tuesday Rose, where are you in Canada? Very good. That's good. They're helping with that. Unfortunately, the pouring baptism has infiltrated at least two of our priests. They need to be corrected by their bishop. I witnessed an Antiochian baptism where a priest simply poured water over his body because he was claimed he was going to fight being fully immersed in the font. Felt weird about it. That is weird. I saw a recent Antiochian baptism where that didn't happen, but he's an older priest, so it may start happening there too. Okay, Rizandia, baptism isn't waterboarding. We know. Jerusalem Shalom, glory to God. Father, is your church in communion with any Romanian old calendarists? We are in communion with one or two bishops in Romania, but not the main synod. That said, there's nothing stopping us from reaching out to them. We just never have. Jerusalem Shalom says, God bless Mother Russia. Okay. How is a boar considered a hog? Oink onomia. Okay, Wally. Okay. The new calendar in general in Greece do not immerse for at least 25 years now. That's terrifying if true. I don't know. That's a Greek issue, and they're going to have to. The Greek bishops are going to have to talk about that and resolve it. This happened again with the Serbians, so that may happen. Just to clarify it, Go Arch does okay. Greek Archdiocese doesn't really baptize converts, and a lot of that is for ecumenical reasons. Like they won't baptize, most mainline Protestants and Roman Catholics. There is a Romanian old calendar church near me, but they don't seem to be in communion with anyone. Please keep this in mind that the Romanian old calendar church I know that they took a stance on principle, but they were in communion with other true Orthodox. They probably will be in communion with other true Orthodox in the future, but most importantly, they're in communion with God and the saints for the past 2,000 years. That is much more important than being in communion with living people. That communion exists whether they have formal communion with other true Orthodox or not. So if that's your option and it's near you, you should take advantage of it and you should go there for services. My priest said he will only baptize Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons. Holy Matt! Wow, wow, wow. Oh wow! I don't even have words for that. That's horrifying. Okay, Father. Okay, this is okay. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the whole baptizing people naked and just it's horrible. And I don't know. Don't go to the old believers. So that's gross. I have a Hindu friend who was baptized, Gorge. Well, yeah, okay. At least they're baptizing pagans. They were in communion with the Greek Genocide Kalinikos, but they have broken it. Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully that situation gets resolved. Yeah, Karen, there are a few in Toronto. Sarah from sorry, man. Okay, that was someone else. That was someone else. That was someone else. My OC parish, I was in the priest received a Mormon through chrismation because he claimed his baptism was valid due to it. But Mormons are tritheists. Like even most World Orthodox wouldn't baptize. They'd baptize a Mormon. That's weird. That's weird. Why are there so many weird people? Okay, I don't know. Wow, yeah. Crazy stuff. Yeah, I agree. I can't make this up. I found it so odd, but I was also an inquirer at the time, so I kept my mouth shut. Wow. There is really zero consistency between World Orthodox, how converts from heretical bodies are received from. Thank you, Father. Very helpful. Thank you for whoever answered my question. I have no idea how to tag to reply, and I can't type Greek. Just put an at and then try to see which letters will match. Thank you for whoever answered my question. I have no idea how to tag to reply, LOL, and I can't type Greek. New Hampshire is very much a Catholic Protestant area, and the only churches I know of are OCA. Funny you should say that. I'm almost certain that I want to say I know of a church in New Hampshire, but I'm double checking. Hold on. Okay, I may be wrong. No, Concord, New Hampshire, Dormition of the Theotokos. Yeah, I'll put. Let me just. I'll put the information in the chat there, Wicked Wally. If you want to visit a true Orthodox church, give me a moment, and I will take out the. Okay, and do. Okay, so let me see here. Yeah. Is your volume off, Father Joseph? Is my volume off? Can anyone tell me, or do you still hear me, guys? Wasilia, Gramanian, TOC is going to be with everyone because of the denial of Kiprianism and GOCK. There was also the COVID issue. Much as you see in the GOC Church in Concord, New Hampshire. No, his volume's on Meletius. How about Nashville, Tennessee? All I've found is a house chapel. Nashville's a tricky one. I'm not sure. I'm gonna try to see. Let me see here. What is available? I know in Tennessee, I've recommended someone to another area. There's the St. Polycarp of Smyrna House Chapel. I'm not sure how far that is because I know the Annunciation Church. I don't know if they're active with services, but I have recommended the St. Polycarp of Smyrna Chapel. So that's all I got there. Let me see here. What else we got? And yeah, so that's all I got. There may be other ones. That's just the GOCK. There may be others. I don't know what's in Rokana, if they have something in. I don't know if they have something there. They're kind of the biggest Russian church there. So let me just see here. Yeah, I don't see anything because they have something in a few states, but not Tennessee. But keep checking. Keep checking. You keep looking. Deacon. I wrote that. Why did I write that? Oh, it broke off. Okay, Butterbog Deacon. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay, Wiki Wally. Yeah, well, hopefully you get a chance. You never know. There's other stuff. No problem. I can hear you. Much appreciated. No worries. I am located in Brampton. I'm looking for tours that I don't know Canada. I know there's stuff in Canada, lots of stuff in Canada, but I am not a Canadian map guy, so I don't know. Do you know what is the dispute between Grigoris and Peterus in Russian during 1925? I didn't understand this part of Vladimir Moss's book. I don't. I would probably recommend. I'm assuming it's a dispute between monarchists, but I'm not sure. But I would probably recommend rereading and Googling that because I know that sometimes he gets kind of very technically deep in the details. Annunciation in Liberty, Tennessee is still active. Okay, I didn't know that. All right. Well, there you go. So Liberty, Tennessee and Smyrna, Tennessee. So there you go. Thank you so much. That's the one. Okay. All right. Very good. So let's see what we got here. Okay. And so let's get back to the list. We've forgotten the list, people. And so once again, let's get the banner up. We have the please help with the donation. Remember, please, can't do this without you. All right, where are we? We're getting to the top 5. The top 5, guys. All right. Canon 15 doesn't allow for new synods. This one actually had 4. I didn't update it though. I missed it. But no, Canon 15 has nothing to do with the formation of new synods. It has to do with the faithful fleeing and even bishops fleeing from a metropolitan, breaking communion with them. The new synod part comes when you have a bunch of bishops who have to organize. That's the natural way they organize, is bishops organize for a synod. So if you have Bishop X, Y, and Z breaking off from the synod for heresy, then they, because they have 3 bishops, unite as a synod. Other bishops who realize that they're in error may join them, and that has been what has literally always happened throughout history. Hope that answers that. Once again, please help with the donation. We can't do this without you. Support the channel. We at NFT need your help. Subscribe. Support us by subscribing or donating at nft.net on Give, Send, Go, or on Odyssey. Let's get back to the comments. Let me see here. Let me see. Aha. Okay. Let's see. Hey, help donate to Father Joseph. You need your help. Thank you. I do. It was about the centralization of the Russian Orthodox Church around Peter of Krititsa and the decentralized diocese of Ufa under Bishop Gregory. I'm assuming that this is kind of a reference to how to interpret UCAS 362. Let me see here. It's so that would be basically 2 interpretations. Eventually, the decentralized argument became the stronger one after the creation of the Sergians. After the creation of the Sergian Patriarchate. All right, well, thank you again for your support of the channel. $4.99. Thank you. We appreciate it. Can you talk about the new calendar's claims about Elder Joseph? Not really. They're lies. I mean, I would honestly suggest there's a lot more written about it on things like Orthodox Traditionalist blog, etc. I think that, unfortunately, this is kind of what happens when we're dealing with people who have an existential need to wipe us off the map. The simple reality is they're willing to rewrite things. There have been cases of saints, of our saints, that they've literally renamed, like Saint Sophia of Claysora, who's actually Saint Mirtiadisa, and I know I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, where they just rewrote their lives, and they'll base it off of dreams, they'll base it off of all sorts of lay opinions. It's tragic, but that's the reality. So I don't have much to say. I would say stick with true Orthodox sources and you won't have that issue. Rizenia comes in with 50 kroner. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you again. Can I talk about Father John Romanidis on why he's a heretic? I feel like I've done a show on this, but the point is, a lot of people have noticed this. I highly recommend reading Moss's Against Romanides. His soteriology is weird. His ecclesiology is weird. He has some really weird views on biology. Has some really weird views on aliens. He's got confused ecclesiology when it comes to people like the Monophysites. He's sometimes he'll talk about how evil the Franks are to the point where he's talking about they're attacking the Orthodox when they're actually attacking the Muslims, like in Spain. He just has crazy ideas. Okay, first off, please, no one send money if you need the money. I do not want people to send money if they need the money. So I hope that was just extra money, Rosandia. Just if not, let me know because that's a concern. Thank you. I've had a hard time finding info regarding Elder Joseph's. It just got to look harder, probably. I would recommend reaching out to St. John's Monastery on Cobblesville. I'm sure that they probably have books they can recommend. When a synod falls away to schism, I would not consider a reconstituted true Orthodox synod as a new synod because the Church and the Orthodox faith never stops to start again. Absolutely true. Spinal fluid. Yep. The noose juice. Probably need to make a long video on Romanides. I wouldn't be surprised if I already have one and we just need to relabel it. Isn't Father Seraphim's book about St. Augustine indirectly addressing Romanides? Yes. Yeah, it is. It was one of the people he was addressing. He was addressing Romanides, but more importantly, he was addressing Lev Pahalo, who would later become Bishop Lazar of the OCA, and also Father Michael Oskool, and others with him, including Alexander Kalamiros. So he was answering a few people. Okay, it was the remains. I'll get more money. Okay, glory to God. Is there any objection to the canonization of Theophan of Poltava, or is he maybe canonized somewhere? I forget. From what I understood, he was canonized somewhere, but I'm trying to remember what the issue was. I don't know. Was it him who joined with the MP? Yeah, and traditional Western Orthodoxy, Vladika Enoch says, Romanides also claimed that St. Leo of Rome was an historian, and Dioscoros was right. Very true. Do you have an answer on that one, on Theophan of Poltava, Vladika? You'd probably have a better answer. Many systems are non-faith oriented plus secular issues, in which case they cannot be taken seriously as legitimate proofs or guides of the faith. Let me just go here and we will kill that one. All right, so where are we on the list? Let's find out, because we were in top 5. True Orthodox haven't produced any saints. This was the 6th. This had 6 votes and was the 4th most popular claim. The best thing that I can possibly suggest to you is contacting true Orthodox clergy, churches, monasteries, and I don't just mean in America, I mean throughout the world. There are new saints. I have seen the glorification of 3 saints this year. I have no idea what a lot of these claims are. They're terrible claims, and when they say that to you, if you believe it, you're trusting too much. You need to go to the source. You need to go ask true Orthodox churches, is it true you haven't produced any saints? Because we have. There's many saints. In the past decade alone, I believe across jurisdictions, there's been something like 15 to 20 glorifications or more. So let me see here. Archbishop Theophan died in the late 1930s. He was alienated from the royal court since he said Metropolitan Anthony was a heretic, since he vigorously attacked Metropolitan Anthony's teaching on atonement as heretical. Okay. Theophan never joined the MP. Bishop Seraphim Sobolev of Bulgaria, which left royal court for MP. Yeah, so I'd be surprised that Saint Theophan, Theophan of Poltava isn't recognized as a saint. Yep, many of the supposed world Orthodox saints were actually true Orthodox. Example, Mirti di Yosef, Klesura, and many more, just like I mentioned, absolutely. Father, I saw your debate with Andrew Wilson. Thoughts on your debate? Are you referring to the where is the church one, or the when to leave the church one? Because it was a loaded question. I happen to hold a very high regard for Andrew Wilson. If it wasn't for the work that he did in the original debate, one that the original participants I wanted to have on the debate actually tried to have me banned from, a lot of people would have never heard of true Orthodoxy. So I have nothing but respect for Andrew Wilson. I'm a big fan of the Crucible, and I consider myself, even at a distance, a member of the Crucible crew. Monika from St. Peter of Poltava never said that. Let's see. Vladimir Moss and others defend Archbishop Theophan and later wrote core writers, but I don't believe any church jurisdiction has canonized. So then it's true Orthodoxy doesn't have any saints. The world Orthodox claim them as theirs, like Saint Tarso. Yeah, it's a horrible deceit, unfortunately. Does anyone have a life of Saint Tarso in English? I would ask somebody in the GOC Clinicals. They might, but they might not. Not everything's been translated yet. We need more translators. We need more everything. True Orthodox need more everything. We need more priests. We need more churches. We need a lot more translators. We do need translators because there's a lot of stuff in the old countries, as we call them. They're producing a lot of information and a lot of material, a lot of data, and we actually don't have time. Father Joseph used to be Lutheran. How do I figure out to show Lutheranism is false to my family way later in the future? Most of the arguments against Lutheranism are just basically the arguments against Protestantism itself. Sola Scriptura is by nature flawed. The church calls for authority. It has authority in the Book of Acts. I highly recommend reading the Book of Acts very carefully when seeing the church in it, and remembering that the way they see the Book of Acts is not the way you see the Book of Acts. So keep that in mind. All right, so that question has been answered. Let's get back to the list. And once again, I'm going to note, please help with a donation. We can't do this without you. Thank you for everyone who has donated. It has been extremely helpful. And it will continue. We continue to rely on your support to see what we can do to continue doing more and trying to reach out to more people ultimately. And so let me see here. The next one, believe it or not, this was top 5. That all true Orthodox agree with Gregory of Colorado. This was apparently very popular. I'm not sure why. I'm still confused as to why anyone agrees with Gregory Colorado. He's very good at getting a lot of the facts straight and then mixing in some deceptions at the end. But the overwhelming majority of the millions of true Orthodox around the world do not agree with Gregory of Colorado. Many have condemned him. Many of the hierarchies have condemned him. Even apart from each other, they each had a beef with Gregory of Colorado because he has managed to alienate the entire true Orthodox around the world. I would say the opposition to ecumenism, Sergianism, and modernism unites all true Orthodox, as well as being opposed to Gregory of Colorado because he's Gregory of Colorado. Let me see here. That's simple enough. That one was simple enough to answer. So let's go to the banners again. And once again, just a reminder, please, if you can, help with a donation. We cannot do this without you. So let's continue on. We are now hitting the top 3, I believe. It's the top 2. We've almost made it. And then I'm going to go to questions. With 7 votes. The only issue is the calendar. I hope that this stream has enlightened anyone who believes that the only issue is the calendar is not true. It's a false claim. It doesn't actually, when you think about it, in the grand world of true Orthodoxy all over the world, it doesn't really even make sense. It's not the only issue. The issues are ecumenism, modernism, Sergianism. The calendar is just symptomatic of that. And the problem is treating the symptoms does not always heal the disease. And finally, before we get to the last one, which I'm going to ask one last time, please, if you can, help with a donation. We can't do this without you. I'm going to read comments as we get to the last one. And actually, I feel like I missed one then because we didn't get to talk about Pangratios Renus. I'm going to talk about Pangratios real quick. Pangratios Renus is not a good example of true Orthodox. People have mentioned him, however. He was in the comments. I thought I had him in the list. I don't. He was a criminal eventually. He was originally Greek Archdiocese. He was defrocked by the Greek Archdiocese for his child abusing. He decided to declare himself a Greek Old Calendarist, which he then got assistance from two bishops of the semi-legal Church of Theophon Noli and Dosistheos of Vinchenko, a bishop of the Moscow Patriarchate. So, for those who would point to Pangratios Renus as a condemnation of the true Orthodox, they might want to consider who consecrated him and watch their mouths. Leading to the final most voted and most where can I learn more about the 1925 miracle? I would suggest books like The Struggle Against Ecumenism. And Vasilia, I see your question, but I want to get to the last. Accusation / bad thing. And it's going to be a combination. Father Panteleimon. And then somebody brought in Metropolitan Valentine / sex scandal with over 10 votes was the biggest objection or problem. Father Panteleimon, they wanted me to go into more detail about his role in kind of the schism that occurred in 1986. He was considered, many people referred to him as an elder, and they took his teaching seriously, and he was against any kind of union. We know that he was also allegedly accused of a lot of homosexual activities. Some people have said he was a pedophile. This is absolutely false. As I understand it, one monk who was actually condemning him explained to me that he was very careful to avoid molesting youths. He was not, in that sense, a good person. He did confess the faith correctly, and a lot of people believed in him. And when he said he was an innocent victim, people believed him. It was possible that he was, it was plausible that he was being railroaded. At the same time, there were a lot of ecumenical things going on around the rest of the Road Court, which is why people were concerned all over the world. What Father Panteleimon did was kind of a shock in the Road Court, and many people, to this day, still think that he was unjustified in leaving. I don't know. What I will say is that what happened in 2011 was when the name worshiping and awake sleeper controversies occurred in Hakhna. It was at a Synodia meeting where everyone was fighting, where he said, "I'm guilty of everything." We don't know, and I haven't asked what was the precise wording, how that happened. As I understand it, he simply said, "I'm guilty of everything." It's possible he said, "I'm guilty of abusing those people." I don't know. It's possible he just said, "I'm guilty," and all the people left. Like just 90% of Hakhna that was in the room just was like, "We're going to the GOC. We've had enough." I have no idea, as I was not an eyewitness there, to what he said, whether he was just generally saying he was guilty of everything or he was seriously confessing to the crimes. I simply don't know. What I do know is that he's reposed. And there are people who are praying for his soul. And I think we should pray for everyone's soul, no matter what. Who, even the heterodox, just not in church. But the point is, what happened with Father Panteleimon is answerable now between him and God. And there's nothing left to do. When it comes to Metropolitan Valentine, I'm more defensive of him, if only because the accusations that were made of Metropolitan Valentine by the Suzdal Police Department were later found out to be coerced and were thrown out of court. He was exonerated of all charges, and one of the victims, alleged victims, was an altar server. When I lived in Russia, I saw him serving at the altar. This was one of these so-called abuse victims. So that seemed more like a kind of an old-style Soviet setup. So it's not the same by any means. And so, but with the Father Pantaleimon thing, but with Metropolitan Valentine, he is also receiving his reward from God. And I believe that I don't believe the charges against Metropolitan Valentine because I think, unfortunately, sleazy post-Soviet police and corrupt organizations abound. And it's to believe it in the face of my own eyes seeing people who were allegedly part of the machine's attack on someone. That doesn't faze me. And so, let me see here. Gregory of Colorado has some good books that he plagiarized. Yeah, Theist, so it's unorthodox. Very sorry to hear they had to menu that debate is where I learned the old counters discovered the true orthodoxy. Glory to God, thanks for doing that debate. Well, it wasn't the Crucible to try to ban me, it was my opponents. David Erhan, to be specific. So yeah, but I'm glad he did because that's one of the reasons I have respect for Andrew and the Crucible. No one tells them what to do. And once these guys started saying stuff like, you can't have them on, they were like, can we? So I respect them. 100% respect. All true Orthodox agree not to go to Gregory. Can't say true Orthodox don't agree. Yeah, that's true. We do. Yeah, he had some good books, though. Plagiarized, yeah, but they're gone now thanks to the court case. Theophan said it is unorthodox. Yes, he did. You'd be surprised that there is world Orthodox who genuinely believe it's only the calendar. Quite sad. Low info people, and that's all they need to dismiss people. Where can I learn more about the 1925 miracle? Books, The Struggle Against Ecumenism. I would even type that in, Miracle of the Cross of Athens in Google. You'd be surprised. Father Joseph, give us a quick interpretation on St. Mark of Ephesus' claims that we do not ever take testimonies of the heretics because they're all corrupt. That's canonical. That's in the canons that you don't refer to the testimonies of heretics. So yeah, that's, it depends. I mean, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to get into quantitative reality. Like, okay, the weatherman is heterodox and he reported that it's raining. I mean, obviously that's his job. He is not Orthodox. I don't consider that a legitimate testimony. We have to be specific. We're talking about Orthodoxy, the fathers of the church, things related to the church. I talked with him before a couple of months. He never believed in genuine Orthodoxy. He's now alone and follows the papal calendar in his tiny monastery. I am not sure who you are talking about. Let me see if I can find that. That's, if you're talking, I'm wondering if you're talking about the guy that made a bishop with Gregory. Another thing, if Metropolitan Anthony is wrong, why is Theophan not universally recognized as a saint? If Theophan is wrong, why Anthony not recognized as a saint universally? I believe it's because that very issue has not been resolved. That is why. Railroaded in what way? Railroaded by the post-Soviet government. Metropolitan Valentine had collected a lot of, they'd gained a lot of access to properties, registrations of properties, large parishes, hundreds, thousands of people. And so they saw him as a threat. My previous comment, I meant Pagratios Vrionis. Yeah, I wouldn't. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. They are both Saint Stefan. You're saying that, but it sounds like a lot of people don't agree with you. You're filling my day with joy, Vasilij. Just for the same sentence as Francis under S talk. Rock is in communion with you, so I guess I'll be baptized. I'll be in communion with us. Yeah. Have you covered the Gregory Decapolites on pseudo-saints yet? I have not, I don't think, but I will. If I have covered it, let me know. I have to review my last couple of Q&As and take them apart. So it's possible I did. I'm not sure. Ha ha ha. Are atheists anathematized by their very nature? Did Patrick Teasis of Romania was really gay? I don't know. Are atheists anathema? Kinda, yeah. I mean, they by their nature. 1917 anathema Rosalia, yes. I'm surprised none of the questions mentioned Elder Paisius or Elder Ephraim. Well, it's because of the nature of the question, which is what is the worst thing that you have heard about true orthodoxy? So I was giving them their chance to really give it to us and slam us. And now, 2 hours in, we have completed that. And that means that even though everything is closed, and even though I stand in solidarity working with the various convenience store workers and people who keep this place running, like police officers, by working here on this here December 12th, Julian, then the Feast of Saints Herman and Saint Spiridon, that we have answered all of them. Did you respond to the Peter the Great argument? Nobody brought up the Peter the Great argument, but I'm glad you did. So absolutely, I would say that the Peter the Great argument is very simple. They try to say things were as bad under Peter the Great as they were under the Soviets. Peter the Great was an Orthodox Christian, as much as we may dislike him as a Westernizer and the source of lots of things wrong that the Soviets like pointing to. He had his pluses and his minuses. What he wasn't was a true enemy of the church. He may have had some terrible opinions about it, but he was not Joseph Stalin. And I think people who say that he was somewhat like that are not smart. Making a bad argument too. I don't know who Father Jeremy is, but hopefully he's hopeful. Let me see here. In his second sorrowful epistle, Metropolitan Philaret praised Romanitas for his position on the Monophysites. I've read the second sorrowful epistle a few times, and I don't remember any reference to the Monophysites. I feel like you're just throwing words together now, Jason. I'm going to check just to make sure. And his position in the 1970s on the Monophysites might have been considerably better than his position in the 1980s. But let me see here. Here at the Conference of Lausanne. Let me see. Well, if he's talking about something that where Romanides was negative towards ecumenism, that's fine. We agree with that. But I have no idea what you're talking about. I think this is kind of made up. Why won't Tio embrace the beauty? Because we got our own beauty. Peter the Great and Old Believers. The Old Believers were still schismatics and eventually heretics. You see here. Thoughts on Rasputin? No, I don't have any. Very strange monk. Very strange fellow. As bad as Tsar Peter was when he's dying, he called on all the icons and priests and had confession, unction, and communion. If he was some secret atheist, he wouldn't have done that. We don't know. Father, I don't know if we know enough about Rasputin to make that claim. I've heard he might have been a name worshiper. Romanitas believed anti-ecumenists to be a cuss word. That's very possible. That's why I'm so confused as to Jason's claim here. You stream my stream when I tried researching this. Okay, that's all right. That's fine. You guys talking to each other. He says in his second, okay, Vladika Enoch seems to have found the quote, the Eucharist that is of the kind that are bluntly said are referred to as demon food. St. Philaret of New York. Yeah, that's very true. We're waiting on Bishop Enoch, what he says in the second sorrowful epistle. Jason, that's a ridiculous statement to make. It absolutely is. I think I talked about Luke of Crimea. He, at best, he was very negative towards the true Orthodox. At worst, he reported them to the Soviet government, so I don't think he's a saint. Okay. I'm going to go to that, and I'm going to try to see if I can find that. Uh-huh. He's not endorsing Romanides here. Yeah, this isn't an endorsement. He's saying that Romanides is saying that they possibly can work out a deal with the Monophysites. I feel like you may have read that letter out of context, Jason. This is stuff he's listing out as evidence that the ecumenists are gaining power. He's not endorsing it. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. Yeah. So go to the search and search Romanides. I did. The reference is too big. It is. He quotes Romanides saying, "We've all been the object of ecumenical dialogue. Romanides could be all over the place if you read his academic works." Luke of Crimea sent Saint Seraphim Sudinsky to the Gulag, together with many catacomb saints. Wow. Yeah. If you read his other stuff, it sounds crazy. Yep, it absolutely does. All right. Well, I think we have covered everything. It was quite the stream, everyone. A lot of activity, kind of crazy. I want to thank everyone, our listeners, to those who had questions and had comments, to those who support our mission. Thank you for all who donated on stream today, and support the channel. We at NFTU need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at nftu.net, on GiveSendGo, or on Odyssey. We remember all of you in our prayers, and thank you for all the support for NFTU. And as always, like and subscribe. I sent a question. I am looking for it. Was the reunion of Bishop Andrew Vufa with Old Believers a good thing? No, I don't think so. The Old Believers ended up, for the most part, being subservient to the Soviet government. So I would say no. So again, we remember all of you in our prayers, and thank you for all the support for NFTU. The prayers will really follow us with Jesus Christ, God of mercy us and save us. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a happy feast of Saints Herman, Saint Spiridon, Saint Peter the Alliot, if I remember correctly, or that might be tomorrow. But definitely Saint Spiridon and Saint Herman, praying to God for us.